time sitting because I'm recovering from a torn meniscus on one knee and a broken toe on the other. Yeah. So anyway, I feel like it's the universe that's telling me, because I'm in the process of trying to get back to work full time, like hurry up, like you need better health insurance type of thing. So my 3 words are, I will say, this is formally stressed. So yesterday I thought my computer had died with my presentation on it. Thank God it was just a cord that had gone bad. Otherwise I was going to be up all night. And then my dog got sick this morning before I walked out. But I'm feeling better now about that. And I'm feeling very energized. Like some folks said, energized. Because part of what this presentation is really giving you my experience in having or being a salesperson and managing salespeople and how it can work in a job search. And really it's a case study. So we're going to go through a example of how I helped a friend of mine, her son, find a job, right? And the parallels of what you do in sales versus how you conduct a job search. And then we're going to talk about, he was a new college graduate, so a little different in terms of experience level. So we'll then look at, okay, how do you do it if we're at this phase of our life that we're trying to either get a job because we're unemployed, go back to work if we've been out. That's my situation. I took some time, probably you mentioned a little sabbatical. I had a good sabbatical too. But I'm ready to go back, and how do you have that conversation? And let's see, your word. Oh, and accountable. So one of the things I'm going to talk about at the end is I'm incorporating this. I've done this. This will be the 3rd time I did this presentation, and I will say I think people have liked it in the past. Nobody's ever walked out, but if you need that, that's okay. But I'm incorporating something that I got an idea after learning about a guy named Jesse Itzler. I don't know if you know his name. He's an entrepreneur. He started Marquis Jet. He's married to Sarah Blakely, who started Spanx. And he's like this motivational speaker, and he's all about finding not your life purpose, but doing what you love and then making money from it. And I did a virtual boot camp with him back in the fall, and it was an 8-week program where he got on every Monday morning and did like a 10-minute pep talk, and then he just shared some of his knowledge, and it was so inspiring for me in terms of just really reflecting on, okay, I want to be back in the game. I'm good, I've been successful, and I know I have more to offer even later in life, right? So we're going to incorporate a virtual job group as a result of this meeting today. And if you want to participate, there's obviously no obligation. I'm going to hand out the Facebook group, and it's a closed group, so you'll have to reach out to me. There's a way to answer a couple of questions, and then if you attended the presentation, then you can join. And the idea is that we'll take the next 8 to 9 weeks in applying the principles that I'm going to share with you today. And it'll be a community to get feedback, if you want to share best practices. I am going to participate, and I will provide perspective as I can. I do want to put the caveat out there is that I'm not going to become everybody's job coach because I just don't have the time. But I am a person that likes to give advice. Sometimes my brothers don't like that, but I usually have good ideas. So I will help where I can, and if I think I can be effective. I took Uber in this morning, and my driver just happened to be this young guy who wants to start his own cleaning company. And it was just such a great conversation to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to send you the link to this presentation because I think you can apply what I'm going to talk about. Because he mentioned sales is not something that he's comfortable with. He's okay with marketing and with accounting and all of those things, but he's just not comfortable selling. So I know I can promote and support and help people in their journeys, and I want to do that too. So we'll go ahead and get started. So this, as I mentioned, is
excuse me. Is it possible we can turn on lights a little bit?
Yeah.
I can't seem to see that.
I'm not a job coach by background. I don't have credentials in human resources, but what I did, or what we're talking about today, is helping a friend of mine. Her son had graduated. This was 2 years ago. So he came to me, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the story as we get into the presentation. And I worked with him for several months, and I recognized that, okay, the sales process in terms of what you do, and doing your preparation, and then finding your prospects, and then doing your follow-up, and then can definitely lead to closing and getting a job. And my view on job searching, and this is not the 40-plus position, but I think reacting to jobs by going online and filling out an application is a waste of time. I'd like to ask, has anybody gotten a job by putting in an application? Okay, so a few people, so more than I would have thought. So what I have found in almost in every job I've gotten has been as a result of networking or knowing somebody. So what we're going to focus on today is I'm going to share with you Alex Butano is the person that I worked with, what his journey was like. And it's essentially a sales process and methodology. And from that, hopefully you'll be able to move forward and use it in your own job search. And feel free if you've got questions as we go along. I mean, this will take about an hour, so we've got plenty of time. Okay, so I'm basically going to make you a salesperson today. We have Paula. I think, has anybody else been in sales? I'm always excited when okay, so a few people, yay, okay. So I think this is the first time we've had people with a sales background. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at how you put your plan in place. Every good salesperson, just doesn't, when they start their job, pick up the phone and start calling people. They do their research, they find their contacts, they have a plan before they actually begin. We're then going to go and talk about how you make your cold calls, which is prospecting or contacting. The phrase cold call, I think people get afraid of that, so don't think of it that way, just think of it as making contacts. It's the most critical part of the process though, right? If you don't make contacts, you're not gonna have any activity, right? Which after you make the contacts is then when you have the activity and the follow-up. And I used to tell salespeople it's all about the activity, right? They'd come to me and say, you know what, I'm just not gonna make my quota this month. I'm like, okay, what's your activity? Let's look at what you're doing. And if they couldn't demonstrate that they were actually doing what they need to be doing in terms of making calls, following up and having meetings and moving the process forward, then they certainly weren't going to make any sales. And the same is true of job searching, right? If you have no contacts, you're most likely not going to get a job, right? So I've got a spreadsheet that I created that I used with Alex that we'll use in the job group that basically keeps you honest. And you can keep track of who you're contacting and what you're talking about and what are next steps and that kind of things. And then I don't know if anybody knows the movie Gary Good with Glenn Ross, and there's a famous line in that movie, "Coffee is for closers." It's a funny movie if you're in sales. But I like to think about what is my reward when I am going to achieve something. And in sales, a salesperson is paid commission and bonuses, and there's always lots of perks that come along with the job, but those perks come along because it's not easy. So in job searching or just in everyday life, I try to say, okay, let's make this fun, and what can I reward myself when I've done things? I tend to be a major procrastinator, so if I don't look at something and say, okay, there's something fun at the end, oftentimes I just don't do it. So, and then the virtual Facebook group, we're going to go into a little bit of detail about that. Okay, so proactive versus reactive. This on the bottom says being proactive rather than reactive means to control a situation rather than letting it control you. I might be a control person too. That might be part of my personality. But the statistics show that between 70 and 80% of jobs are never advertised. think you probably heard that before. And it actually might be even higher than that. The even sadder statistic in my opinion is that when the job is posted, the odds of you getting that job, does anybody have a guess on what that is?
3%.
3 to 5%, right? So think about if you're a salesperson and you're given a quota, to sell $1 million in a year, and the only way you know how to sell is by responding to RFPs. It's kind of similar to responding to a job ad. Would you be able to tell your sales manager for sure that you're going to make your quota? Probably not, because the chances of winning an RFP are, statistically not that great either if you've got lots of competition. So I really believe that being proactive and in control of what you're trying to do is far more powerful than reacting. And I have not had luck in putting in resumes and cover letters into I call it the big black hole. I don't know if it's really that, but I had one recently where it was a position that looked really interesting, and I spent, a lot of time customizing my resume, my cover letter. I went back in just to research the organization, just for one, I don't know, it was something I was looking for. And there was a press release that they had appointed somebody internally to fill the position on an interim basis. So all this time I spent on a job that was advertised that then ultimately was never going to be filled from somebody on the outside. And so it just, again, it's not 100%, but the odds are just stacked against us, I think, on doing that. So I like to be proactive in a lot of areas of my life, and that's what we're focusing on today. All right, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, giving you an education on what a sales process is versus a sales methodology, but the sales process is basically, the steps that you take in order to be successful in closing business, right? And we're going to go through kind of the overall general sales process. So, that is really the what. The sales methodology is the how you do that. In the sales world, there's lots of ways of how you actually conduct your sales process. And so what I'm doing today is I'm essentially giving you my methodology of how to find a job using sales process techniques. So that's what we're doing. All right. So I think of there are 4 stages in a sales process. Preparation, which is where you do the research, the contact, which is the prospecting, follow-up, which is where you have your accountability, and then close, which is also reasons to celebrate. Probably like a lot of things in life, I know in project management this is really important. I've heard several people are project managers by background. I used to work for a company that offered project management training and consulting, and we would always say, okay, if you don't plan, you're going to fail, right? So same is true of really kind of anything in life, right? You really have to prepare. In your job search, what you're looking for are, if you're looking at a proactive approach is, okay, what are the types of organizations I want to work for? Are they companies? Are they nonprofits? Is it government? Is it, association? What does that look like? And you may make your selections based on what you've done in the past, or if you're considering maybe a transition to a different area, you say, okay, well, I really want to focus on, associations now. So you want to make sure you have kind of a target audience of organizations that you want to go after. You want to think about what your value proposition is, right? So what skills and experience are you bringing to the table for these organizations that you want to go after? I would say you would want to be selecting organizations and roles that you have some skill set to offer. as we've seen in, you know, the downturn in the economy, I don't know if other people experience this, but I surely have. If you didn't have exactly the experience that they were looking for in the job ad, you didn't even get a peep. You know, they didn't even call you to say, we'd like to talk to you. I think things have lightened up a little bit, and I think things are getting better, but, you know, I guess the point here is, you know, if you want to become a salesperson, you can't go to someone and say, I'm going to apply for this sales job if you've never had sales experience. You know, you have to kind of stay within your ecosystem of what you know and what you do well. And if that's something you want to move into, then you get the job and then work that way. I mean, I would also encourage you to look for jobs that are posted and you know, see what they're looking for in terms of background and experience. One of the things I've been doing on LinkedIn is looking at people who provide job counseling or, you know, resume writing and LinkedIn profiles, and I've been looking at their recommendations and then using those people who have given recommendations to look at what they've put on their LinkedIn profile. It's wonderful in terms of getting ideas on how to restructure your profile and not have to pay somebody. You know, those services can be kind of pricey. So if you don't know anybody who's a resume writer, just go online and type in resume writer, and you'll find plenty of people who do that, and then just look at who has given them a recommendation. And those are your templates for a new LinkedIn profile, if that's what you want. Also in the preparation and the organizations that you're going after, you know, learn about what's going on. You know, the last thing you want to do is reach out to somebody and say, gosh, you know, can I have 10 or 15 minutes of your time? I'm looking to get back into a sales leadership role, and not know anything about their company if they agree to sit down with you. All right, so learning about the organization and being able to articulate some information, I think, is important. And then I think just, I said this earlier, just being able to match what you think are your skill set to what potential problems they're having and how you can help solve those problems. I think that's, in the sales world, that's what we're looking for, right? We go into a customer and they're having a problem, and our product or service can help fix that problem. That's what you're trying to do with your value proposition. Figure out where they're having challenges and address those and say, this is what I can do to help you do that. Okay, so preparation, really key, spend a lot of time there. Contacting and prospecting, okay. This is probably the least favorite thing that anybody, even a salesperson, likes to do. Because why do people not like to make calls to people they don't know? Or reach out?
So concerned about.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so rejection is just part of the process, and that's what I was giving advice to my Uber driver this morning. I said, you know, you just gotta get out there, just go. I said, why don't you make your goal this week to just get 50 rejections, right? So then you go out, you know, and you say, okay, I hit 50 rejections. Well, you know, you never know. You might, out of those 50, you may get a couple people that have interest, right? So it's, I have a slide later on in the presentation. I'll show you why the contact is, well, how infrequent salespeople actually follow. That's more to the follow-up, but the contact piece, and why it's so important, right? And by just contacting people, trust me, you'll be surprised at how people respond. I've been reaching out to people on LinkedIn, and I don't think I've reached out to CEOs, you know, just to either give a recommendation or, you know, to get connected. And I've had very good luck in, you know, responding. I think you don't want to pick up the phone and call somebody necessarily right off the bat, but LinkedIn is a great tool, obviously, to make connections and to get referrals. This person's not here today, but somebody reached out to me when I was doing I was going to do the presentation in January, and she said one of the things that she does, and she calls it snowballing, and I love this, is that every person that she talks to, she asks for a referral. So it's like one more person, right? And I thought, what a great concept, right? You talk to somebody in the organization, say, well, who else can I who else could I talk to in your organization? Or who else do you think I should add to my network? So I love that. I was hoping she'd be here today, but maybe she found a job already. So contacting is really important. Rejection, just don't take it personally. That's really what it comes down to. It's not you. Sometimes it's timing. Oftentimes it's timing. It's just not a good time for people. And so, you just have to try different ways of reaching people. I wouldn't start your prospecting activity if you're going to move forward in doing this proactive job search Monday morning at 9 a.m. because people are getting their week started, right? They're busy. They're trying to plan their week. But, reaching out on a Tuesday morning or a Wednesday after hours might be a good time to try to engage with somebody. So follow up. This is the really important piece. If you don't follow up, again, it's kind of like you're wasting time by even making the contact. And you can't just follow up once or twice. You have to continue to follow up. And, in the sales world, we would say you keep following up until you get a no. If you have a good prospect that you think the organization needs you as an employee, I would say keep following up until they either tell you stop calling or you found something else. But there's nothing wrong with following up and being pleasantly persistent, as I say. You just don't want to be annoying and harassing with that. The follow-up is to keep you accountable, right? So if you say, and this is me, so I say I'll say this. I have a friend that's checking in on me. Say, okay, what are you doing this week? Okay, well, I'm going to meet with these two people, and I have a call with another person. Okay, well, what are you planning for next week? So I'm accountable to my friend to say I'm going to do these things and then actually do them. And that's part of the other thing with this job search group on Facebook is I'm hoping that we will say to each other, okay, I'm going to make 10 calls this week. And then at the end of the week, we say, not only did I make 10, but I made 15. I don't know if any of you all know Ken Shopman, who was very involved with 40 Plus. He did some consulting with Lee Harrison, I believe, an outsourcing company. And I reached out to Ken to find out what was the optimum number of hours you should be job searching or leads you should be pursuing or however they measure it. And he said that they advocate 15 actual contacts per week. So that means not an email. That's not like sitting behind your computer and writing an email, but actually having a phone conversation with somebody, meeting somebody for coffee, that kind of thing. So 15, that's a lot. And so I think you're not going to right off the bat probably have 15, but maybe we strive to have that at the end.
Yes. They break it down per day?
15 in a week. So I think.
So you would hope you have one a day at least being proactive, thinking, okay, 15 a day, that's 15 a week, that's a lot.
Oh, no, sorry, 15 a week.
15 a week.
Yeah, sorry, if I didn't say that, yeah, I'm sorry.
15 a week, but I'm just thinking, breaking it down, that's something to like 3 a day, pretty light, well, yeah, at least.
Right,
2 a day.
right. It sounds like a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But if it's a 10-minute phone call or a 15-minute informational interview, it's not that much time per se, right? So anyway, that's again just what Lee Harrison prescribes as being what you should do if you're actively job searching. So yeah, follow up and accountability, and we'll talk a little bit about the spreadsheet. And then of course closing and celebrating, in a sales world, that's getting your contract, customers paying you money. In our world, hopefully that's getting a job, and a job that you love, right? I mean, how many people have had jobs that they just had it because it was a job? I've had plenty of those, but what I'm looking for is the job that hopefully I can, spend the next 7+ years doing and be my last job. That's what I'm looking for. So, okay, so let's get into. I'm going to skip over that. This is how we're going to go about doing this. So it's going to be hard for you to see what's up here, but this is Alex. That's Alex. And we're going to go through his job search journey. I do want to point out this document here. Has anyone used Canva?
Yes.
Okay. So it's an online tool, I guess you would call it, that you can produce a nice graphic document. This was like his calling card when he was reaching out to people. And it basically has, you know, his professional goals, his education, professional skills, social media, and then a synopsis of his work experience. And then up here is his contact information. He actually posted this on his LinkedIn profile underneath, or I think within the summary. It's just kind of his one-page overview. I really like this. I haven't put one of these together myself, but that's on my list of things that I want to do. There was on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, or maybe longer, Marissa Mayer, who's the CEO of Yahoo. She had something similar that really, it was really interesting. Like she had, as part of one section, my passions. These are my passions. This is what I'm good at, you know, and then some of these other similar things. But I think this is a great document, especially if you're reaching out to people that you don't know, you know, to just essentially give them a little glimpse into who you are. So, did you have a question?
Is that a full page, 8.5 by 11 sort of
Yes.
thing that appeared on his in LinkedIn?
Yes, he added it in as a PDF document.
Beautiful. So people could link and see it.
Yes, if you go on and look at his profile, I don't know if he's
Right.
got it up there anymore, but it was
Okay.
up there as, yeah,
Great.
as part of, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I really like that, and I didn't know about Canva until,
Yeah.
you know, he shared that with me.
Excuse me, that tool, Canova.
Canva, C-A-N-V-A. It's online, so
Free or you
canva.com.
have to pay for it?
I
It's
believe
free.
it's free, yes. Yes. Okay, so Alex's major was in sports broadcasting and communications, and he's also got some marketing and social media as part of his academic experience. And he also was a hockey sports broadcaster in college at Ohio University. And his dream is to work for a hockey league. And his dream is still alive, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit. He wanted to focus on finding a job. You know, he would have loved to have worked for a major league hockey team, but they never hire into the major leagues apparently. So you start out in the minors. And so what we did was we said, okay, actually this was in concert with his parents, who were my friends, because his dream, you know, was going to require that he live at home and not work until he found a job. And so they agreed to let him pursue this dream for a period of time. And in the hockey world, apparently, in the minor leagues at least, the window of opportunity for getting a job is like over the summer. So it was good timing in terms of having graduated and then wanting to do this, that the timing of me helping him really worked out. So basically what I said to him was, I said, you know, Alex, I've got this idea, you know, I can teach you some sales skills to help you with your job search. All I would ask of you is that you follow my direction. We get together, you know, once a week to keep you accountable, watch, and I want to see your progress. And then do what I tell you to do, right? Because he was very junior, very, you know, inexperienced. And I said, just trust me when I say some of these things can work, and you will. So he had, in terms of his target market, right? His preparation, we're now in the preparation phase. He wanted to find the 200 organizations in the minor league. So we identified that. He looked at what kind of potential job descriptions would fit his background, which was like, you know, broadcasting assistant or videography manager or different kinds like that. And then who within these minor league teams was the person that he would go out to actually say, hey, I'm Alex Utano, I've got this great background, you know, would you hire me, type of thing. So that's where he was identifying his, what I call the hiring decision makers, right? So in sales, we're always looking for the person who can make the decision to actually buy the product or service. In your job search, certainly you want to talk to people that can help you in your job search, but I would say don't waste your time with people who can't ultimately help you find your job, right? Because that's what I call busy work, and salespeople can be busy sometimes and not be productive. And we had an established timeline because this period of time that he was able to find a job was like from June and through August, right? So this was a great example to use for what he was trying to do. Did you have a question? No?
Yes, it's about identifying the hiring decision makers. Would a name be in the job position description, like contact so-and-so? How do you go call turkey and company and say who's making the decision about this job?
Yes, that's a very good question, and it's hard to answer. Not only in sales, but I think in a job search, and that's part of what we'll do too in this virtual group. So, again, I'm going to use the project management example as just because it's something close to me. So if you're an IT project manager, Ron, are you an IT project manager?
Yes.
Okay, so Ron is an IT project manager, and that's a fairly standard title. People pretty much know what that means. Ron would probably go after, decision makers. It would be someone like the director of IT or the director of the project management office. You have to know what the individuals of who you've worked with, what those titles are. So this came up in one of the other presentations. I can't tell you what the titles will be for what you do. You're going to have to kind of figure that out by looking at job postings. I think that would be a good place to go. But you're not necessarily going to know who's making the hiring decision, right? Just like in sales, a lot of times we don't know who's really ultimately going to make the decision on buying the product or service, but that's part of the follow-up and contacting and trying to get that information. So that it's probably the most nebulous part of the process, right? Because it's not black and white. And it's going to vary depending on what you do and the organization, that kind of thing. So let's look at what he did. So he had 200 teams, so we had 200 organizations that he had to go after. And he had two segments of decision makers, we'll call them, that he wanted to go after. Tier 1 were the vice president or the director of operations and broadcasting. So that was the title that seemed to come up the most in the minor league teams. His tier 2 was to go after the team owners. And that was really my idea. I was more curious to see if a young college graduate who was proactively job searching would get any reaction from team owners. So he put his list together, and so think about this. There's 200 organizations. He had to research every single organization. He had to find on LinkedIn or on their website who that person was. And then he had to go about trying to figure out what their email nomenclature was. And then in some cases, the phone number, right? Because I made him put this in that tracking sheet so that when he did his follow-up, he had all the information. And the team owners, we'll talk about that, what he did with that. He did something a little bit different. So the next step after he had all of his information of who he was going to contact was, okay, well, now what am I going to send them? Or what's going to be my pitch, right? So we worked on his resume, and we worked on his LinkedIn. We worked on cover letters, and I use the term cover letter meaning your communication. It wasn't necessarily via a letter per se, but it oftentimes was an email. And we had the standard one that we created. I say standard, more really customized to the hockey, the hockey industry. That was those were documents that we updated more than once. I think probably over the course of the 3 months we made changes like 3 or 4 times. So just a reminder here that, when you create a resume and a cover letter, it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? You're constantly going to be adapting, a resume or a cover letter based on the job that you're going after or the person you're going to talk to. LinkedIn isn't quite as flexible as that. I wish we could create different LinkedIn profiles, depending on what we want to do, but that's not possible. I just saw something funny this morning on, I think it was on BBC.com, that somebody's advocating that we change our profile pictures to a picture of a dog to take away bias. And somebody's, yeah, no, and they talked about how, like, it would be, they've created this, I'll see if I can find it, if anybody's interested, that it would be, it takes away the bias, right? So, and I just got a chuckle because I'm a big dog lover, so. All right, so how did he reach out is probably the most important part. So he's got his resume, he's got his cover letter, or his email communication. You know, there's various modes of communication that we have at our disposal. Because he had researched all the email addresses, a lot of what he did was via email initially. The first contact was via email. He also reached out to people with his resume, or not resume, the cover letter, with his cover letter message via LinkedIn and connected through LinkedIn. We used snail mail for the team owners, and this was actually a really interesting experience because I don't know that he'd ever sent a business letter. I don't know that he'd ever addressed an envelope. It was just quite interesting. But he sent a letter to every team owner with his resume via snail mail. And let's see what else. And then he made phone calls. The phone call wasn't the first contact. The phone call was after he had made contact, and I'm going to walk through how that worked. I do want to give you a little secret that is very handy. If you're making a phone call to somebody and you don't want to necessarily talk to them, there's a service called Slide Dial. Has anybody heard of Slide Dial? Let me give you this number because I don't think you're going to be able to see it. And this is only if you're dialing a mobile number, so it has to be a mobile cell phone. So what you do is you dial, it's 267-759-3425. 267-759-3425. And what happens is you'll get a voice prompt and it'll ask you to enter the mobile number. And then I think there's like a little bit of advertising you listen to for 30 seconds. And then it pops you right into their voicemail, right? So their phone never rings. It just goes right to voicemail. And it's a great little tool because if you want to just touch base with somebody, but you don't really want to call, or you're making an initial contact, it's just a nice way to, you know, do something without having to actually get them on the phone live. So we use that a lot in the sales world.
Does that number work equally well for cell phones and landlines?
Just cell phones, mobile, yeah, just cell or mobile. As far as I know, I don't think it works for any other kind of number.
Can you say more about finding email addresses of people if they're not on LinkedIn and you can't find them via LinkedIn? Do you have
Okay.
any other secrets about that?
Good question. So I would recommend going to the company's website. Oftentimes, under press releases, they will list the PR person or the marketing communications
Yes.
person. So, for example, the company I worked for, it was ESI International. And if you wanted to know what my email address, it was first initial, last name, at esi-intl.com. That was the nomenclature at the time. But you could go in and find out who the marketing person was, and if it was Mary Simpkins, M. Simpkins, then you know that it's first initial, last name. So it is a little bit trial and error, but
That's beautiful.
yeah. Well, sales is kind of sneaky. You have to
I
kind of,
like that.
you have to
I
kind of
like
get
that.
around things, you
Love
know.
it.
But yeah, I would say, or just Google. Just if you're going after, I'm just trying to think. RTI Consulting. That's a company I saw recently. Just Google RTI Consulting email address, and you'd be surprised what comes up. So, very good
Oftentimes
question.
it's hidden on the company website too, so if you search staff, like oftentimes the homepage will have a search box.
Right.
Type in staff or staff list, you'll find it easily because
Right.
a lot of organizations do hide their staff listing.
Right. Well, that's why it's really important to make connections on LinkedIn, because if you get connected to the person, then you get connected to the valuable information. Like, oftentimes people put their mobile numbers up now. They don't always put their work email up, but their personal email. I don't know that I would reach out to somebody on their personal email for a job opportunity, but you can probably figure out their work one. So, yeah, great question about the finding that. And that, does show a level of proactiveness, I think. If somebody says, wow, how did she get my email address? I don't know this person. I mean, it's not that difficult, but not everybody knows how to do it, right? Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through this because it's not really that interesting, but it's more from a perspective of the number of contacts you have to make and what then the results are of your efforts. And just know you need a lot of contacts to have really any results. So in his case, he reached out to 400 people, right? So 200 of the VP directors and 200 of the team owners. He actually had a great response from the VP and directors. He got, what's that, 35%? Yeah. So people actually acknowledged that they responded to his email saying, hey, great, Alex, thanks. We don't have anything now, but check back later. Or, I'm not the right person, you need to reach out to so-and-so. Or, that. So he got a lot of good response, which that was really motivating for him. And I'll tell you in a second what I told him to do after he got some of that feedback.
So it was emails or the letters?
Well, that was the emails. The initial was the email, right. So the team owners, those are the letters. We'll get to that. You can see it's not very good. So for his response of the 70 where they responded, I said, okay, now you have to follow up again, right? So if they said I'm not the right person, then just thank them and just say, thank you for responding. I appreciate it. Is there he asked for advice. He said, is there anything that you would suggest that I do for my resume? Some people responded to that. Sometimes people didn't, but some people then responded and said, well, you really should, we're going to be hiring in June or in July. Check back with me then, right? So then he had a follow-up action for a later date to put on his calendar. So of those 70, then he had what we call 14 kind of warm prospects. And from there, he then had 5 what I would call real opportunities. So these numbers are actually pretty good. He didn't end up getting a hockey job. I won't ruin the moment here, but he did not get a hockey at that time. Okay. But he increased his LinkedIn. He added 175 LinkedIn contacts in the period of 3 months. Pretty good for 23.
So question along those
Sure.
lines, the 200 number, that's all, correct?
That was every team, yes.
Right. So at times we talk about the shotgun versus the rifle approach.
Uh-huh.
So in your advice for him on that situation, why of that 200, if you're doing research, et cetera, if you're not targeting 800, 157, why the whole 200?
Well, we just decided to go through all of them because he was open to going anywhere.
Yeah.
And as you can see, there was no harm in doing all of them because the reaction was he only got, only 35% really became qualified. Not to say that those other 130 still aren't prospects. They were just not as warm prospects, right? So it's a hard question, right, to answer, I don't know. Yeah.
When you first presented this, you said 200 people, he did the research. So
Yes.
to do 200 companies to do all that reading and to take out various important points and put it in his logged in or his graph, whatever he was making, that could consume a lot of time, right?
You know what, he had those 400 names in less than a week.
Yeah, but he had to do research on the companies too, right?
Well, remember, these are hockey teams, so a little different. And it was, he was promoting recent college graduate in sports broadcasting. I want to work for a minor league hockey team. That was his value proposition. So a little bit simplistic. So you're not probably at your level gonna, reach out to 200 different organizations, but you might target 50 organizations, or pick your number.
Yeah.
It's all up to your world is your ocean, right? So you determine. That's why this proactive approach. If you think about it, instead of having there's no jobs out there, I'm never going to find anything. Really, we should be thinking there's so much opportunity. Where do I begin? Right? It's just harnessing it and making it usable and tenable. And I think, Greg, to your point, is having a structured approach helps get you better results. So maybe you say in the next 8 weeks, I'm gonna identify 20 companies. I don't know, I'm just throwing a number out there. Might be 50 for some people. And in those 20 companies, I'm gonna establish 5 new contacts. And then you do research on 20 versus 200. So, yeah.
How was he so successful in adding so many people to his LinkedIn
He
connections? Did he wait until after people responded to him, and then, since there was some name visibility there, when he sent them an invitation to connect, they recognized it and were?
I think part of the LinkedIn request was him reaching out to say he was looking for a job. So he got some connections that way. Yeah.
Interesting.
Which you have to be careful with, like, making a request for a connection, because sometimes people don't read the message. So my experience, I found that I add like a personalized message, but I'm not necessarily saying I'm looking for a job. And then once I get connected, then I say, thank you for accepting my invitation. This is the reason I wanted to reach out to you. You can always say, when you're looking at who you want to connect with, you can find organizations where you already have a connection of some sort, a mutual connection. That's an easy reason for somebody to accept it. And again, it's kind of like prospecting. Just go ahead and do it. I've had people, I've had some that haven't accepted them, and then just say, okay, well, it's their loss. They don't want me, then that's fine. It's one of their connection. And you just move on.
And I would add to that, if there's somebody that you're really targeting, follow them. And then the minute they post anything interesting or whatever, you comment on that.
Right.
That's
You
great.
say, what a great article, I really, whatever, and then they'll usually take your
That's
connection
a
request.
great idea, great idea. Do you know that when he reached out to request a connection, whether all these people had LinkedIn, the distinctive LinkedIn addresses, or did he have to research emails to get to some of them?
If you go on LinkedIn and you put somebody's name in and the organization, you almost always find it.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we had any issue with not being able to find somebody. Now, there are, I guess, some people that don't have LinkedIn profiles. I think, I've heard, like, if you work in government or, if you work for one of those government agencies, you may not have a online presence just for, obviously, security reasons.
And a lot of people are just dormant on LinkedIn too. It may be there, but they are not using it.
Right.
I mean, I find like the job seeker is probably more active on LinkedIn.
That might be true, right. So then, LinkedIn is just one of many modes of communication, right? So, you've got LinkedIn, you've got email, you've got phone, you've got snail mail. You've got lots of options.
In terms of snail mail, the one time that I was successful in getting an advertised job on a I don't know which advertising agency it was, I sent a FedEx cover letter and resume to the CEO,
Perfect.
to the head of, head of the foundation, in addition to putting my stuff online and responding the usual traditional way that often gets you nowhere. In addition to that, I wanted to make sure that person had to sign, or his secretary, or whoever his assistant was had to sign for that FedEx letter, so I knew it got to his
Right.
office at least. I don't know if that was in part why I got to the short list and got hired, but snail mail still has some potential, I think.
Yeah, and not to kind of create, any issues of ageism, but if you look at the people that are, more experienced, like all of us in the room, we're used to receiving mail, right? So people of our generation are not going to be thinking they're going to probably be surprised and pleasantly surprised if they've got that. So let me close this out and then we'll move on. And if there's questions, we'll keep taking them. But team owner response, not so great. He sent letters and then he followed up with a phone call. So when he got the phone call, he never spoke to a team owner. He did have one team owner after of the 10, one did then respond again saying, you know what, you need to talk to so-and-so at the team, and here's that person. Well, he already knew that person, but it was good to affirm that he was talking to the right person. So that was more for my kind of curiosity for him to do the team owners, because I like to go high when I'm reaching out to people. And I think it was good for him to learn how to write a letter and put it in the mail. So were there other questions before we keep going? Yeah.
Just to get back to the LinkedIn itself, it used to be when LinkedIn started a long time ago that the approach was that you should only link to people that you know, that you can verify, you can apply for. In other words, I get like bombarded with LinkedIn requests from recruiters, never spoken to the persons, and I ignore them, So I don't have many LinkedIn contacts, but all the contacts I do have, I know them. At least I had a substantial conversation.
Okay.
So when you said, well, he sent out all these letters and added 150 contacts, he didn't talk to them contacts, right? He just automatically connected,
They all accepted his
They accepted
connection,
it.
right?
Right.
So I think this is a personal preference, so I don't want to tell you what you've done is
Right, no,
right, not
I'm
right.
saying-
But if I were you and I were trying to find a job, I would never, first off, I would never not accept a recruiter request,
Okay.
ever. Because that person may not be able to help you right now, but remember, somebody you're connecting to today isn't necessarily going to help you today. They might help you next year, or maybe you're going to help them. I can't remember one of the speakers, I don't remember who it was right now, but I remember them saying in one of the presentations about how they got connected and it was something they were able to do for this person. And then it was like years later, that person reached back out to them because they remembered that they showed kindness in helping them when they had a need. So I don't take requests from people that, or don't look like they have something in common with me, but I pretty much accept any connection. I don't think there's any harm to it unless the person ends up being kind of weird or something, but I've never had a bad experience with that. So, okay, so the whole point, and I want to kind of wrap this up so we can get to the other piece of this, is that, the follow-up is really important. You have to make a lot of contacts, as you can see. In sales, the statistic is something like you have to make 100 calls to get 10 meetings to get one deal. So it may not be quite that ominous in the job searching world, but the whole point is you don't have a lot of activity, you're not going to probably have a lot of prospects. This is the approach we took that Alex did. He touched base every 7 to 14 days, or when they told him to get back to him. That's where the tracker sheet is really important, or if you have some kind of CRM system you can use, that's also good. And email and text is what people prefer, right? People don't like to get on the phone, but why not make a phone call, right? People don't get calls anymore. One of the things I did with Alex, he was really nervous about making a phone call, so we actually role played. So role play with your friends or your family on, if you want to make a phone call, practice as if you're going to leave a message, and practice as if you're going to catch the person live, and what are you going to say in the time that you have. So I think it's far more powerful to have a conversation live, right, than it is via electronic means. So, and then repeat. You repeat those things over and over again. Yeah.
So, if anybody can resist it, but years back, I was following up with a decision maker about a job I had applied to. So I told this person that I had to make a decision about daycare for my son if I was going to take a job in Washington, and that prompted the decision.
Right. Right.
Sometimes those things.
Yeah, you never know until you talk to somebody how what can happen. And I just had an example. Somebody who used to do my hair. I saw her. I hadn't seen her in a long time. I said, I'm back trying to find a job. She goes, oh, you need to talk to my brother. He's a recruiter. Oh, you need to talk to my sister. She works for this technology company out in Reston. I'm like, oh, I have 2 new contacts now, right? With somebody that I would have never expected would have helped me with my job search. So just ask. So we just ran through what he did, focusing on hockey teams. Now we're going to just talk a little bit about everything else he did, which is really what you all are doing, or I'm doing, we're all doing, and what are the sources of networking that you can have in terms of finding other contacts. Certainly there's lots of job boards. I'm sure you've heard of Indeed, you know about LinkedIn, jobs on there, friends and family. I just used a good example on, using somebody that I know. An idea came up in the last time I did this presentation that just kind of came to me while I was talking that I don't know if it will work, but I would say try it. Is let's say you're applying to a job. well, let's talk about if you're actually applying to a job that's posted. One of the things I would highly recommend is finding people on LinkedIn that you may be connected to, either first, second, third connections that work for that company, and say, hey, I'm applying for this job. Is there anyone, who can I, how can you help me? Or can you help me? The idea that came to me was the employee referral systems that a lot of organizations have in place is, could you find somebody on LinkedIn that works for the organization that might benefit from an employee referral bonus, and then help you get in front of the right person? I know in most of the organizations I've worked, there's usually a very generous bonus that's paid for referring somebody. Now, I think you have to be ethical about it. You have to, probably establish a contact and have a conversation instead of just sending my resume. But, I mean, companies are looking for people to refer. So just another kind of idea to, use whatever means, whatever tools are in your toolbox to do that. And then I don't know, are there other sources? What other ways are you all finding positions that are?
I found two other job-related websites very helpful called Ladders and
Ladders,
Glassdoor. Glassdoor especially.
Yes, and Glassdoor, yes, I should add those, that's right. Ladders is very good, and Glassdoor.
Those also, instead of, in addition to posting jobs, they also give a prospective salary estimate. I think Glassdoor does that. So if you're looking for certain positions and the estimated salary indicates how serious that or how senior that position is as well. So I find it very helpful.
Right. So one thing, then Tom, I'll get your question, is somebody told me, I read this once, about your LinkedIn connections, where are your best opportunities for making, somebody helping you. And it's not necessarily your first connections, it's your second connections. And I don't know if there's some psychology around, well, I don't have to really recommend somebody that I worked with that I don't really remember, or, but then you have a second connection. Is there a feeling of, okay, I want to help this person because they've reached out? So I don't know what the experience is with that, but I thought it was an interesting statistic. So Tom, did you?
Yeah, I just want to reinforce your comment about employee referral program. As an employment manager, I had employee referral programs where I asked, the employees to identify IT people. I was hiring hundreds of software engineers for government contracts. Now, if an employee gave me a resume, referred somebody, I would obviously look at it. And chances are, if the person had skills that were compatible with the job, I would schedule that person for an interview. In other words, if you're referring someone to the company HR team, they're generally going to get a look at the resume, because if they don't, the employee referral program will die. The employees will say, why should I give them a resume if they're not going to look at it? I also had a bonus of $2,000. So it was an incentive for the employee to find people that have the qualifications.
I would like to try this as part of the job search page, and again, not to try to get into the ageism thing, but see if reaching out to maybe less experienced people in companies where money is really important, if being a more experienced worker, if they would respond to that. So I think somebody in here is agile software development. You, okay. So a lot of this is just being agile, right? And trying different approaches. And if it's not working, adjusting, what you're doing and try something else, right? And it's trial and error is basically what this all is. Okay, so just, these are things that you already know or should be doing. The networking, we talked about that. That's probably your best option. Getting referrals, doing informational interviews. How many people are doing informational interviews? I know, David, you said you got one. And how are you finding those to be effective?
Yeah.
Yeah.
David,
I guess you'll let us know.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Sorry, I think it's always good to talk. People get more context about who you are,
Right.
what you're looking for, and again, like you just said about friends and family, they might know, oh, you have to talk to this person, it's another way in order to build your network that way.
Right.
Well, and you said this earlier, I think too, it's like, what do you want to come, what's your goal of the informational interview? The chances are slim that they're gonna offer you a job on the spot, they might, but what you ask of them is, do you have any advice for me? Or is there another person within the organization I can talk to, and you just keep that snowball process going. And then I find too, it's just helpful, if you've been out for a while, you're coming back, just to get your story down. And the more you're talking about it, the more confident you become, and you're better and better.
It's also might be entryway to those hidden jobs, right? The 78% that are never advertised. So.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. It's timing. Everything in life is timing, right? And it's if you happen to meet with somebody today, David, there may not be an opportunity. In fact, 40 plus in their job training program, we don't advocate asking for a job in an information interview. We ask, to get advice or, feedback, but don't be asking for a job, because that makes people uncomfortable if they're not hiring. But you just never know after that if they say, wait a minute, I met David, we should talk to him, let me find his car. So, and then I think the final thing on here, thank yous, cannot just underestimate how important it is to thank people. And the follow-up of thanking is, I made Alex thank everybody he talked to, and he really got a lot out of it, and I made him write some handwritten notes too. So, yeah. Yep.
The handwritten notes would be work.
Yeah, I think for an interview, a handwritten note is amazing, right? And if you have it ready to go, like as soon as you have the interview, you can basically drop it off before you leave, or drop it off later. It's very immediate. People don't do handwritten stuff anymore, right? So, all right. So quickly want to just, you won't be able to see this from where you're sitting, but this is the spreadsheet tracker that we created that he then had to keep updated. I was like his sales manager, and he had to send it to me. And literally he had the contacts, where they were located, what their title was, their email address. There were other columns, for phone and that kind of thing. But he had his last column here is the what's going on, right? So it said keep eye on TWO. I think that's the Teamworks website that has the job postings. NR was no response. This person said nothing available, willing to give advice. Okay, here's one, said keep in touch, follow up, and then there was no response. So, he had multiple interactions with some of these people. Potential internship, right? So this way, he knew everything that was going on. And one thing that I would tell you, and I don't have a tracker right now, but I'm going to have one when this group gets going, is that if you don't have a tracker where you're having to keep track of your activity, you don't have enough activity. Because you shouldn't be able to have everything up here. You don't have enough. You just don't have enough if it's all up here, if that makes sense. You want to have so much going on that you have to refer to your tracker about what you're supposed to do next. Because it is really all about the activity. So this was very helpful, and I will share, I will share this with
What do you mean tracker?
It's what I call the spreadsheet.
Oh.
Tracker, That's just my term, yeah.
Is there software, I think there's also software, somebody said there's something like Jibber Jobber or something like that.
There might be. Maybe I'll explore that.
And if you can get a trial version of some sales software, that also.
Right, so
I think
CRM's a customer relation management system. That's a great point. You think that's what we should explore? I'll look into that.
Cool.
Yeah, great idea.
Actually, I'm going to add Jibber Jobber is a CRM for job seekers. It was written specifically to keep track of
Love
companies,
it.
contacts.
Jibber Jobber.
You can keep a log of activity, and you can assign reminders out of the log.
That's perfect. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That's good. Okay. All right, so this is, I do want to spend a minute on this slide because this is all about the activity, the follow-up and the activity. And so, first off, 48% of salespeople never follow up with the prospect. How many times have you called somebody to come out to look, sell you windows or whatever? Half the time, probably more than that, they don't even call you, right? So 48% of the time, they never even reach out. Which is, to me, is like, oh my gosh, if I were the owner of the business, that would make me crazy, knowing that people weren't responding to potential customers. So then of those 48%, then 25 will make a second contact, right? So 25% will make a second call. But then what happens is it goes down to 12% will make a third call. And only 10% of salespeople will make more than 3 contacts. If you go all the way to the bottom of this slide, why this is really why it doesn't work, if only, you make 3 attempts, is that 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. So people give up after the first or the second or the third time. And I saw it with salespeople, right? And I think we probably, myself included, have done it with job searching and other things. So the whole point here is it's persistence and don't give up, right? And it doesn't mean that you would keep in touch with somebody who isn't a warm prospect constantly, but keep them, keep them in your queue of maybe reaching out every few months or something, right? If it's a place that you want to work and, a job that you really want to have one day at that organization, then it makes sense to continue to follow up. So anyway, I find that very telling. Okay, so this is Alex. He did get a job. He got a job actually, we started in May. He started this job at the end of August. And he is a live event operator at Verizon. And he will give me credit for him finding this job. But I tell him it wasn't me. It was a recruiter reached out to him. And I said, you created this opportunity. You created getting this job because you had so much activity. And you had a great LinkedIn profile, and you had a great resume, and you had great follow-up. That's why you got the job. The good news is that he's still there. He's been there now almost 2 years, maybe a year and a half now. But he just got another part-time role doing something with broadcasting and hockey somewhere in Maryland. So he's slowly getting into the hockey world that he really wants to be. But this pays his bills and keeps him busy. Let's see. So just to kind of recap his journey, we basically did the preparation in May. His follow-up contacts and prospecting were done May, June, July. And it was the end of July, he was contacted by Verizon, and then he started August 21st. He started his job. So Alex is a closer. All right, so I want to share with you, any good project manager provides lessons learned. Oops. So again, not to beat this too much, but it is all about the activity. If you have more activity, you have more opportunity. I mentioned this earlier about agile. Be agile. Just try different approaches. When we were doing his first round of emails, we experimented with different subject lines, just to see if he got a better response for some of the folks that he reached out versus others. So, just get creative and do things differently. The follow-up is really crucial. You can't give up. Obviously, the contacting more than 3 times is really important. Keeping yourself accountable using Jibber Jabber or whatever way you want to track your progress. And then I think, for me, it's making it fun and just not making it like it's a chore. And possibly think about something you want to reward yourself with as you reach certain milestones. So we're coming to the end. What I would like for you to take away from this is, can you apply some of these principles to your job search? If you would like to, and I will pass these out so you can see what it looks like, because I know you can probably see that on the screen. So I created this Facebook group. It's called Proactive Job Search, and it's got a green background, orange. I read something that orange is a really good color for websites. I don't know, so I used orange. But if you want to join the group, And the whole idea, for those of you that maybe came in later, if you want to apply these principles, this is essentially going to be a community of people who are actively seeking a job or wanting to get another job. And it's going to be a forum for us to share best practices, encourage one another. I will post, anything that I think is relevant to help. I'm not going to become a job coach, but I will certainly give feedback where I have time. And, I think it's, making a commitment, and for me, being accountable is going to be really important. Whoever joins, I hope you will remember that I said this, keep me accountable too. And then, ultimately, can you greatly expand your network? Because the more people you know is probably the easier way to get the job. And then, in a perfect world, if we could have somebody find a job during this period, like that would be nirvana. So that's all I have. I think we're right on time, so I will. Oh, one more thing. So here's the timeline for the job group. This week, so you can reach out if you want to join. I'll add you to the group, but this is really a preparation week. So it's getting your resume updated, your cover letters, your LinkedIn profile, whatever you feel like you need to start making contacts. Then starting next week, for the weeks of February 18th and February 25th, you'll continue to do whatever preparation you need, but you'll start making contacts, right? So in sales, you can't like say, oh, I've got to just tweak this a little bit more before I actually call somebody. No, you've got to get on the phone, get on your email, start reaching out to people. And I'm guilty of that as well, because I like to have everything perfect before I do anything. So I'm going to force myself to be on, in fact, I'm doing some stuff this week actually. And then the rest of the time, the week of March 4th through April 12th, we'll just be following the process, right? Contacting, follow up, and hopefully close on a job. April 12th is a Friday. It will be the last day of the group. So I'm not going to keep this open-ended unless we think it's a great idea and 40 plus wants to, maybe adopt it as something else. But I'm doing it for a set duration, so I have 110% focus for the next 8 weeks. So it's really more for what I want to do. And we'll see how it goes. Again, don't know until we try. But I think it'll be an interesting experiment. And that's all I have. Yes?
First of all, thank you very much. This has been so helpful. I'm wondering from a sales perspective how you taught Alex to approach these people when he was approaching them cold.
Yes.
What did you learn about an attractive subject line? How do you make somebody want to read your email?
Oh, good.
And did he ask them for an information interview before he's saying, look, I want to work for your company?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think some of the subject lines, I'd have to, it's been almost 2 years now, but I think he may have had like recent, broadcast graduate seeking, position. I think his initial subject lines were, he stated what he was going after. I think at our level and tenure, I don't know that I'd be asking for a job per se, unless there's a job available, then I would certainly put that in there. But I might be asking for advice, I'd like 10 or 15 minutes of advice. You can always feed people's egos. Somebody, referred me to you. You can always kind of make things up a little bit, that you might be a good person for me to talk to. I always tell people, like, especially in the job training classes, and I know you probably want to talk a minute about that, is I tell people, like, especially in project management, the company I used to work for, it's like, well, you should just let me know because I can probably refer you to somebody there. I would say 9 out of 10 times nobody followed up with me, and I thought, here I've said, like, in these job training classes, you should reach out to me, right? Now I don't know anybody at that company because I've been gone so long, but when people say, reach out to me, most of the time they really want to help. So it's up to us to follow up and respond,
So if he got people to open up their email, then he must have had his elevator pitch really concise in terms of the cover letter or the body of the email in order for them.
That's all part of the preparation.
In order for them to then open up and read his resume.
That's right. So it's your value proposition.
Yeah.
What is your value proposition for this organization, or why should they talk to you? I do want to read something very quickly to this point, and then can I get your question after?
Yeah, I was just real quickly, I was just going to say that in the subject line, I've read that just to put the person's first name to stand out to from the other emails they get.
Oh, so in the subject line?
Yeah, somewhere put in their first name, like, hey, Adrian, you might be interested in this. So
Okay.
then it
So-
stands out more than just a normal subject line.
Okay. So this popped into my email over the weekend, and I'm subscribed to Korn Ferry. And this article was entitled, "There are no job openings, you're still hired." So it says, it used to be people got jobs because they fit all the qualifications for an opening. But in today's remarkably strong labor market, now they may not even need any actual opening to land work. In a new Korn Ferry survey, 57% of hiring executives say they've hired for a specific skill set, even if there was no existing role for the candidate to take. It's just the latest sign of both the opportunities a low unemployment market creates, as well as the anxiousness many firms are expressing over the need to find enough talent ready for future transformations. You may have seen some of this practice 10 years ago, right? So before the bad economy, but certainly not this prevalently or at this place, says Jacob. I can't say his last name, at Korn Ferry. The method is most prevalent for bringing in digital skills such as data analytics and artificial intelligence, areas where there has been so much new knowledge created in the last few years. Few firms outside of the technology sector were even considering artificial intelligence 5 years ago. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. So it's talking about that, but I think the point of what I got in this article was, if you're reaching out proactively to somebody and say, hey, you know, I've got really strong sales skills, I've been very successful in, you know, opening up new markets, I managed, you know, a region in South America out of Brazil, you know, I'd love to talk to you about how I might be able to help your organization. That would be my pitch. Think about how you could say that if you've researched an organization that potentially needs your skills. Because this tells me, you know, we're at now maybe the cusp of where advertising, they can't find people, or, you know, they're willing to take somebody who's seasoned and experienced and say, well, if they were successful doing what they were doing, we probably can train them to learn artificial intelligence and some of these data analytics skills, right? So it's not hiring for exactly what they need, it's hiring the person that they can train to do that. So.
Well, you also keep reading articles about, you know, 57% and all of these high stats are looking for the soft skills. So they can train on the AI or whatever the product is, but what they're not being able to find are strong leaders, strong communicators, and looking for those soft skills that I think an older population has to offer.
More experienced. Okay.
Would
Should
you
we-
be able to stick around?
Yeah, let's wrap up
afterwards?
and then we'll
Yeah.
take questions, yeah.
But
I think we
first,
wanna-
most importantly,